Skull Nation, stop right now. US Bank Stadium is just the beginning. Minneapolis just exploded with breaking news, and what you're about to hear will redefine everything you know about this season. A defensive legend is coming back. A young quarterback finally returns to reclaim his throne. A division rival head coach just made a bombshell statement about our future. Management is being rumored to make trades at the deadline, and an important offender was released while the locker room shifts internally. 5 stories, one purple storm that's about to sweep through Detroit this Sunday. Insiders confirmed all of this last night. Here's the first payment, and it's real. Andrew Van Ginkel, the same man who recorded 11.5 sacks last season. His first career Pro Bowl in his debut year with Minnesota. Practiced at full capacity midweek after for games out with a neck injury that nobody knows exactly how serious it is. If you bleed purple and believe the Vikings are going to conquer the NFC North, hit like and subscribe right now. Let's prove that Viking Nation is the loudest fan base in American football. The biggest story starts here with a defender who could be the missing piece. But hold on, because while Van Ginkel prepares to return, the situation of a young quarterback is about to be tested like never before. Stay locked until the end. There's a double cliffhanger involving Detroit and Green Bay that you did not see coming. Neck affected, for weeks lost, 2 sacks in 8 snaps, 1 Pro Bowl in his first year with Minnesota. Andrew Van Ginkel is a man who made the impossible look ordinary, and now, at the exact moment when the Vikings defense is drowning, he returns to battle. The question isn't if he's ready. The question is, how much damage can he inflict on Jared Goff's offense on Sunday? The answer? Everything changes. Van Ginkel suffered a brutal concussion in the season opener against Chicago. The kind of hit that leaves you wondering if you should even be on that field. He rested 1 week, came back in week 3 against Cincinnati, played only 8 snaps, and when everything indicated a simple return, his neck just gave out. It wasn't a quick recovery. It was FOU or weeks of uncertainty, of meetings with doctors, of side training that nobody could see. The 30-year-old outside linebacker was forced to sit out while the Vikings defense disintegrated, while mediocre pass rushers like Jalen Redmond led the team with just 3 sacks all season. Redmond, 3 sacks, the same guy who was supposed to be occupying the second priority level, while Van Ginkel was the quarterback destroyer. The locker room knew, the fans knew, the defense knew it was operating with one hand tied behind its back. Here's the detail nobody wants to say out loud. Van Ginkel was firmly refused placement on injured reserve. That means Minnesota believed he'd return in days, not weeks. That confidence proved naive, but keeping him off the IR also meant keeping the door open. And now, after a full practice on Wednesday for the first time since before the Cincinnati game, Van Ginkel is walking down the return line. He spoke to reporters and said exactly what the locker room needed to hear. It's been eating at me, and I can't wait to get back on the field. It wasn't hesitation. It wasn't caution. It was hunger. Now here's the context that changes everything. Last season, Van Ginkel recorded 11.5 sacks, a defensive explosion that put him in the Pro Bowl in his first year with the Vikings. That means the team opened its defensive playbook for this man, and he delivered immediately. He wasn't hired to be a backup. He was hired to be destruction. So when Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores signed that contract extension during preseason training, they did it because they KNEW Van Ginkel was the key to Flores' pressure system. The problem? The season started and everything fell apart fast. Van Ginkel started healthy in Chicago, played poorly, rested, came back ready in Cincinnati, and then his neck decided the season had a different plan. But here's what's insane. In 8 snaps against Cincinnati, Van Ginkel recorded 2 sacks. 2 sacks in 8 snaps. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's a level of pass rush that Flores can build on, that Jonathan Greenard can mirror from the other side, that Dallas Turner can learn from. The defensive design makes sense when the first piece is in place, and now that first piece might be returning. The entire defense functions differently when Van Ginkel is on the field. Insiders working with the team suggest, this is a rumor confirmed by assistant coaches, that the system shifts from a balanced model to a pressure-based model. You bring 8 men to the line midweek. The quarterback feels the heat. The backfield gets nervous. Suddenly, the defensive line isn't just holding the line. It's choking off run routes because Jalen Redmond and Jonathan Allen have permission to be more aggressive knowing Van Ginkel is attacking from the outside. That's divisional football, my friend. And talk about timing. Detroit, The Lions are 5-2. Jared Goff is in a Hollywood second act with 1,847 passing yards in 7 games, a TD to win ratio of 16-4. Dan Campbell's offense is real. It's crisp and it's dangerous. The last thing the Lions wanted was to face a complete Vikings defense at Ford Field, and yet that's exactly what might be about to arrive. Ginkel practiced at full capacity. He won't return as a backup. He'll return as the beginning of a reconfiguration. So let me ask the question the locker room is asking. Do you think Andrew Ginkel makes a difference on Sunday? If yes, hit like and comment below. And if you believe that when Ginkel returns healthy, the Vikings defense returns to form, share this video and let Detroit fans know that the division is about to shift. Because here comes the transition to the next bombshell. And this one goes directly to the heart of the locker room. 6 weeks of waiting. 1 quarter of a football game. That's how much time JJ McCarthy has spent out since suffering a terrible ankle sprain in week 2. That injury that made everyone in Minnesota sigh and think, here we go again. Carson Wentz came in. Wentz played. Wentz built a reputation for playing on broken bones, torn muscles, and dislocated shoulders. And on Thursday Night Football against the Chargers, Wentz's shoulder said no. Not anymore. Not today. Surgery. Season over. And now JJ McCarthy, the second-year quarterback on whom Minnesota bet its entire future, is walking toward Ford Field with only one thing on his mind: reclaim his starting spot. Here's the story nobody wants to tell about week 2. McCarthy was headed into the game in Minnesota. He played against Chicago the week before, against the Bears, his second game ever as a starter. You know what McCarthy did in that game. He won, led the Vikings to victory 21-13, showed poise, pulled the team through when things got tough, demonstrated the kind of calmness that makes analysts blink twice. Then came week 2. He faced Denver, ankle sprain, came out of the game. Wentz came in, and so began 5 weeks of chaos. Let me put into perspective what it was like being in Minnesota while McCarthy recovered. The fan base started questioning everything. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the general manager, was criticized for his patience. Kevin O'Connell, voted the NFL's best head coach in 2024 by the Associated Press, best coach in the league, started receiving complaints from his own fan base. Why? Because the madness of watching quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels in Washington taking a franchise to a conference championship, Drake May in New England being mentioned for MVP in October, while McCarthy, the draft classmate of all these guys, was resting on the couch, made fans go crazy. You want to know how frustration feels? Imagine seeing Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., and Caleb Williams all showing flashes of what they could be, while your quarterback is sitting in a walking boot. But here's what nobody wants to acknowledge. McCarthy was never placed on injured reserve. That's important. That means Minnesota kept the door open the whole time. That means O'Connell and Adolfo-Mensah believed in McCarthy just as much as the public discourse suggests. The ankle was serious, a bad sprain, but it was also the kind of injury that required patience, not surgery. The NFL protocol is clear. You prove you can cut, turn, and accelerate before you return. McCarthy did that in week 7. Returned to practice as a limited participant, stayed limited in week 8, and now, on the Wednesday of week 9, he was listed as a full participant. McCarthy himself spoke about it, told reporters the shift was dramatic, amazing, ready to go. He said, "I feel like myself again. I feel like I've worked through those mobility issues that were concerning me last week and the weeks before. So yeah, ready to roll." You hear confidence in those words because the locker room hears it. When your quarterback tells you he feels himself again, that sends a signal. It's not just physiology, it's psychology. It's the mentality that says, I'm not scared of Detroit. I'm not scared of Jared Goff. I'm ready. Now let me tell you why this matters beyond the field. The Vikings offense was designed with McCarthy in mind. Kevin O'Connell is the guy who won a Super Bowl as offensive coordinator in Los Angeles by building systems around young quarterbacks. The system is built on 3 pillars: quarterback movement, short passes to create rhythm, and then unleashing Justin Jefferson at distances where he can explode. McCarthy, when healthy, is a wizard with movement. He's not Patrick Mahomes, he's not Josh Allen, but he understands space, he understands timing, and he knows how to make our wide receiver on the move seem impossible to cover. Because let me tell you something the insiders are whispering. This is a rumor circulating in Detroit's coaching staff. According to sources close to Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach is genuinely impressed with McCarthy. Campbell won't publicly beat you. He's smarter than that. But when he was asked about the young Vikings quarterback, here's what he said. You watch the Chicago game and see what he did. Had a little bit of a rough start, but then all of a sudden he comes back swinging. You see the calm, the composure, and his ability to overcome it and really lead his team to victory. That's impressive for a young guy. Campbell also spoke about the Vikings game plan for Sunday. They're gonna establish the run game. They're gonna establish the short passing game. They're gonna get the ball to Justin Jefferson, put this kid in motion. They're gonna do a great job. You know what the problem is. Campbell is right. And when the head coach of your division rival admits that your young quarterback has the ingredients to win, that changes the conversation. Is Minnesota's fan base wavering? Yes. Are there doubts about the leadership? Yes. But Dan Campbell, a man often seen as a great locker room motivator, just gave the Vikings locker room an emotional weapon they didn't have before. Campbell reaffirmed that McCarthy deserves to be on the field. And when that comes from the mouth of a rival head coach, it sounds like prophecy. So here's my question for you. Do you think J.J. McCarthy is ready to be great again? And more importantly, do you think he can make the Vikings offense something Detroit isn't prepared for? Comment below. And if you believe that when McCarthy returns healthy, the Minnesota attack comes back to life in a way Detroit is not ready for, hit like and get ready for chaos. Because now comes a story involving someone from defense who is not coming back, and the implications are changing everything. Wednesday afternoon, a quiet tweet. The Minnesota Vikings announced the release of Kayvon Wallace, the reserve safety, from the practice squad. It wasn't a video. It wasn't a press conference. It was 14 words on a social network, and for most fans, it meant absolutely nothing. But for the locker room, for management, that release told AMUCH's darker story about how the Vikings are planning their next decade. Kayvon Wallace wasn't a main figure. Let me be clear about that. The guy was struggling just to stay on a roster that already had Josh Metellus, Harrison Smith, and Theo Jackson rotating at safety. But Wallace represents something much more important than statistics. He represents decision. He represents cuts that teams in rebuilding position make when they're planning to get rid of assets. Let me back up for a second. Wallace was selected in the 127th pick of the 2020 draft, the same draft in which Justin Jefferson was selected in the 22nd pick. The guy started his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, played there from 2020 to 2022. Then, like many reserve safeties, he started traveling. Cardinals in 2023, Titans, Seahawks, Giants, and now a brief stop in Minnesota. He's a legitimate athlete, 5'11" to 105 pounds, 40-yard dash in 4.53 seconds. But he never transformed into a game wrecker, never transformed into an all-pro, never transformed into someone teams offer money to keep. But here's what's critical about this release and why you should be paying attention. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell don't release practice squad safeties without a structural reason. Minnesota already had salary cap problems. The young quarterback on whom you bet your future is missing 40% of his first season as a starter. Your franchise wide receiver is Justin Jefferson, who's in his contract in his early years. The defense is disintegrating. That's the situation. And in the middle of all this pressure, they made a locker room move that suggests a very different mentality. The timing is everything here. Why release Wallace now? Because Minnesota is probably preparing for bigger trades at the trade deadline. Let me explain. Bill Barnwell, ESPN analyst, who has direct sources inside NFL organizations, reported that the Vikings are being advised to explore trade possibilities for two specific names at the deadline. Rumor confirmed, according to ESPN, Aaron Jones, your running back, and Ivan Pace Jr., your linebacker. Here's why this matters. Aaron Jones costs just $1 million in 2025, but in 2026, he has $2 million guaranteed out of a $10 million contract. The Vikings will probably be out of that deal in free agency, which means trading him now for anything allows them to save money and shift resources to a possible year 2 of J.J. McCarthy. It's management saying, we're thinking long-term, not short-term. Ivan Pace Jr., the guy lost his starting spot, played only 17 offensive snaps in the last 2 weeks, will be a restricted free agent after this season. But if Minnesota trades him before the deadline, they get a conditional pick back and remove the problem of dealing with him again. But wait, because here's the secret the locker room knows. The release of Wallace isn't about Wallace. Wallace is a symptom. The release of Wallace is Minnesota officially signaling to the players that asterisk this season might already be lost asterisk. If you're 3 wins and 4 losses, you don't make repairs. You question the future. You prepare for changes. You make it a real possibility that trades might be coming because you don't believe this roster can take you where you need to go. You know what the most important emotional implication is here? The locker room sees this. The players see this. When your general manager starts releasing practice squad safeties and it becomes a real possibility that Aaron Jones might get traded, the message is crystal clear. We might be rebuilding. And that changes dynamics, changes mentality, changes why you go out and bang on the defensive wall. Here's the final context you need. Roster turnover is not uncommon in Minnesota, but it's uncommon to see it happening while you still have playoff hopes. Normally you make these moves in November, when you're out of the race, when everything is lost. But Minnesota is 3 wins and 4 losses. There's still time. There's still a chance. And despite that, Adolfo Mensah and O'Connell are operating like they're preparing for 2026, not 2025. So let me ask the question nobody wants to ask. Do you think the Vikings are really competing for a title? Or is it clear that management is preparing for bigger changes? Comment below. And if you think releasing Wallace is a sign that the season is a total loss, hit like and let the Packers know that you don't believe in Minnesota. Because now comes a story that comes straight from Detroit, and this is the story that could crack the entire locker room. Dan Campbell stood up on Wednesday. He was coaching a team 5-2, a team in command, a team that was starting to look like a real contender in the NFC. And when asked about J.J. McCarthy, Campbell said something that was not rival coaching talk. He said the truth. They're gonna do a great job. They're gonna try to establish the run game, try to establish the short passing game, get the ball out to Justin Jefferson, get this kid on the move. Campbell was basically saying, your quarterback is good. Our game on Sunday is going to be tough. Here's the problem. When you're a division rival head coach, you publicly admit that the opposing quarterback is good. You change the psychological game. Minnesota's fan base was in doubt. The locker room was being questioned. Confidence in McCarthy was wavering like a candle in a hurricane. And then Dan Campbell, a man who built his reputation as a warrior, essentially validated that McCarthy deserved to be in Ford Field. Campbell said, I know what his talent is. I've seen it. That's impressive for a young guy. This isn't casual praise. This is a rival head coach saying that he respects his opposite quarterback. And when that respect comes from Dan Campbell's mouth, a guy known for running aggressive schemes, for getting physical with challengers, it changes emotional meaning. You don't get compliments from Campbell if you don't deserve them. But hold on, because now comes the second story that's gonna flip everything on its head. Aaron Jones, great running back late in his career, valued as a first-rate pass catcher, as someone who can haul in 10 passes in a game. Cheap contract this year, $1 billion. Heavy contract in 2026. And now, rumor confirmed by ESPN, the Chargers were advised to explore a possible Aaron Jones trade with the Vikings. Wait, let me say that again so you understand why this is a bomb dropper. The Chargers are at 5-3. They're in a real battle in the AFC West with Kansas City and Denver. They don't have time to prove points or give opportunities. They have a championship coach in Jim Harbaugh. They have the opportunity to make trades that move them forward at least a step. And while they're looking at their next offensive wave, nobody in Los Angeles is sitting there saying, you know who we need? The Vikings running back, except they are why? Because Kamani Vidal is dragging. Omarion Hampton is injured. Najee Harris is injured. Los Angeles needs a trustworthy running back who can contribute in 2025, not 2026. Aaron Jones is that guy, and Minnesota, in its infinite wisdom, is going to trade him because it needs draft capital for 2026. Bill Barnwell wrote about it with brutal clarity. Jones' departure might have more to do with money saving than anything else. Would a team like the Chargers be willing to pay $3 million to have Jones on their roster for the rest of 2025? The answer is yes, and the Vikings know it. So now you have a situation where 1. Van Ginkel is returning to the defense. 2. McCarthy is returning to the field. 3. The rival head coach is validating McCarthy. 4. But your management is exploring how to trade your assets. That's structural chaos. That's an organization operating on the simultaneous planes, and nobody's sure which one is real. Let's put final division numbers into perspective. Minnesota is 3-4. Detroit is 5-2. Green Bay is, wait, you know what the problem is. Green Bay is also wavering. And the Los Angeles Chargers just beat Minnesota 37-10 on Thursday Night Football, which means the best teams in the NFC North are Detroit and, well, nobody knows. The Vikings can win the division if they go 5-1 against NFC North opponents. In their remaining 8 games, it's possible. It's unlikely, and it's the kind of situation where everything can fall apart if you drop to 3-5 on Sunday. Let me ask the double question here, because it matters now, not in January. Do you think J.J. McCarthy can lead the Vikings to a division crown against Detroit? Or do you think that season is already lost? And second, do you think the Vikings should be trading assets like Aaron Jones in pursuit of a better future? Comment below, because here comes the double cliffhanger that's going to wrap everything up, and believe me, you won't be ready for this. Andrew Van Ginkel is returning after 4 weeks out. J.J. McCarthy is returning after 5 weeks on the couch. A rival head coach validated our quarterback, but our own management is exploring trades like we're lost. 5 stories, a division in flames, and the Minnesota Vikings are at an inflection point that will define whether this franchise is competing or rebuilding. Let me be clear about what this means. If Van Ginkel returns and your defense gets back to Pro Bowl form, you have a pass rush that can make a difference. Jonathan Greenard on the other side, Van Ginkel on this side. Suddenly, Detroit can't afford to let Jared Goff sit in the pocket. Suddenly, coverage works because pressure is real. You know why Miami almost dropped the Lions in their most recent matchup? Because pressure changes everything, and Van Ginkel is pure pressure. If McCarthy returns and your confidence is our EAL, and by his account, it is, you have a quarterback who can make Kevin O'Connell's offense look unstoppable. Short passes to Aaron Jones, pocket movement, Justin Jefferson in open space, and suddenly you have an offense that doesn't need to win by pounding. You can win with rhythm. You can win with intelligence. You can win with the manipulation of an opposing defense. And when you mix that with a return to the trenches and Van Ginkel destroying the backfield, you have offensive-defensive synergy that could carry the Vikings to a divisional run. But here's the real analysis. Detroit is 5-2. The Lions have the best record in the NFC. Green Bay is reconfiguring. Chicago is years away. The Vikings, with a 3-4 record, are dangerously close to a season where they don't compete for anything. Being just 1 win below 50% isn't perfection, but in a conference as competitive as the NFC, it's near invisibility. Currently, Minnesota is sitting in 12th place in the conference, 12th, and among the 4 teams in the NFC North, Minnesota is in 4th in that division. Now, if the Vikings win on Sunday, they drop to 4-4. Suddenly, with 4 games left in the first half of the season, you're in position where a winning streak puts you back in the conversation. But if you lose, you drop to 3-5. And when you're 3-5 in mid-October, with the schedule getting progressively tougher, the conversation shifts from we can do this to when do we rebuild. Let me describe what needs to happen in the next 48 hours. 1. Van Ginkel needs to be activated for game time. No limitations. No caution. Ready for 16 snaps? No. Ready for 50 snaps? Yes. 2. McCarthy needs to walk into Ford Field with the confidence that Dan Campbell validated. He needs to recognize that he and Justin Jefferson have a talent advantage that Detroit might not be able to match in coverage. 3. Brian Flores and his defensive scheme need pressure diversity, need creativity, need the moment when Van Ginkel returns and the locker room feels the upgrade. The comparison to 2024 is crystal clear. Last season, the Vikings had a roster that knew how to compete. Andrew Van Ginkel recorded 11.5 sacks. Jonathan Greenard was a first-rounder acting like a first-rounder. Harrison Smith was an All-Pro. And despite all of that, the Vikings lost the division to Detroit in the final second. This year, you lost some of those defensive assets to injury, and just health issues. But now, with Van Ginkel returning, you have the chance to be who you were supposedly going to be in 2025. Or you can drop to 3-5 and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is making deals. Because he already knows this season is done. So here's what I need from you. 1. Hit like if you believe the Vikings conquered the NFC North. When Van Ginkel and McCarthy return to form, that like button is how you vote. Every like is a vote for purple. Every like says I believe. If you don't believe, that's fine, but hit like anyway because deep down, you know Minnesota is capable. 2. Comment below with your boldest prediction. Do the Vikings win the division? Do the Vikings make a deep playoff run? Or do the Vikings drop to 3-5 and you agree that the rebuild is already starting? Leave your answer below. 3. Subscribe, because each new subscriber makes the Purple Nation community stronger. Each subscription is a purple fist raised. Each subscription is you saying that you're in the fight with the Vikings. You're in this battle. You want to know when things shift, not if they shift. But wait, because here comes the double cliffhanger. And believe me, you won't be able to sleep tonight when I finish. Internal cliffhanger. Last night, locker room sources report. This is a rumor circulating among team insiders that Kevin O'Connell called a coaching-only meeting. No management, no players, just coaches. And what was discussed in that meeting stays secret, but rumors from players who talked afterwards suggest the conversation was about defensive reconfiguration and if Van Ginkel can return. The defense is going to flip this locker room. That could mean O'Connell is contemplating changes so drastic that his coordinators needed to know first. If that's true, you're seeing the beginning of a defensive transformation that Minneapolis hasn't had in years. External cliffhanger. Green Bay. The Packers are 4-3. They're dangerously close to third place in the NFC North. And here's what nobody is telling you. Green Bay just cleared $22 million in cap space. $22 million. You know what running back is on the trade market? Aaron Jones. You know what? Running back Green Bay might be considering adding at the trade deadline. Aaron Jones. If the Packers get Aaron Jones before Minnesota or before Los Angeles, you have a situation where Green Bay is strengthening while Minnesota is weakening. And while Minneapolis is staring at San Francisco this Sunday, Green Bay is staring at Baltimore in Week 10. And if the Packers go out and win in Baltimore, they drop to 5-3. That puts Green Bay just a games back if Minnesota loses in Detroit. And suddenly, you have a division where Minnesota is in third place. SKOL Nation, the next week is gonna define this season. If you return with a win and both Van Ginkel and McCarthy are in form, you have a conversation. If you walk out of Detroit with a loss and drop to 3-5, you have a rebuild. And if Green Bay gets Aaron Jones and walks out of Baltimore at 5-3 while you're sitting at 3-5, you have a crisis. Hit like, comment your prediction, subscribe so you don't miss when the next bomb drops. Because the next 48 hours are gonna redefine everything in Minneapolis. Skull to the wall, let the Lions hear the horn, and let Green Bay KNOW that this North is OURS to conquer. The battle starts on Sunday. We ride together.